I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh! Hey everybody, before this video starts, I just wanted to let all you guys know that I'm going to be putting a little bit more effort into the editing of my videos from now on, like putting Minecraft footage in the background instead of just images or a black screen. So with that said, let's get into the video. Jellicoe. How did it differ from Freetown or Hisbark or Hewlett or all the other hamlets and towns masquerading as places of importance? No expert yet at judging people or towns, as I was becoming ever more painfully aware. I did observe that, unlike Hisbark, Hewlett, or Weevett, Jellicoe had walls. Those walls rose more than 30 cubits in near perfect condition, and the massive iron fittings of the eastern gates were oiled and clean. The grooves for anchoring those gates and the stones in which they had been chiseled were swept clean. A full squad of men, 12 or more, in gray leathers patrolled the gate, inspecting each traveler entering, each occupant or citizen departing. "Master Wizard, you've traveled our way once again?" The sergeant's voice was firm, respectful, but not subservient, matching the trim gray leathers of his vest, trousers, and well-kept heavy boots. Of the other soldiers, 2 were moving bales and baskets in a produce wagon pulled by a single donkey, while a third held the harness. Another was watching as a peddler emptied the contents of his pack onto a battered pine table set by the edge of the gate. On the wall overhead, barely visible behind the parapet crenellations, a pair of crossbowmen surveyed the stone-paved expanse outside the walls where the inspections occurred. "Wizards do travel," replied Justin. "And this young fellow?" asked this certain sergeant, inclining his head toward me. "Serving as my apprentice for now, at least." "That wouldn't be an apprenticeship of convenience, Master Wizard?" Justin turned his head directly upon the sergeant, his eyes wary with age, conveying experiences best left unrepeated. That was what I saw. The sergeant stepped back and nodded. "Sorry to bother you, gentlemen." His face was pale. When I lifted the reins, my hand brushed my unseen staff in its lance cup. Briefly, marveling at my newfound ability to cloak small objects by wrapping the light around them, swished the reins, and Gerlach carried me to the farm wagon. One soldier had ripped off the wagon seat and was lifting small bags from the narrow space underneath. The blond-bearded young driver trembled in the grasp of another unsuspecting soldier. I glanced back at Justin. Hempweed. Flat, unconcerned. "No!" screamed the man. One of the guards looked at me as I swished the reins again, letting Gerlach carry me past the granite walls and into Jellicoe, then slowing to let Justin and Rosefoot draw abreast. "Will they execute him?" I asked. Justin eased Rosefoot along a narrow side street bearing left from the main gate highway. "No." Even less than 50 rods into Jellicoe, the Viscount's control was evident. No street peddlers, no beggars, no litter, no refuse. While the streets were brick, they were level, and on the side street down which we proceeded, even narrow alleyways we passed. "What will happen to him, that farmer?" "He's no farmer, just a young idiot hired to drive the wagon. They'll brand his forehead with an X1. The guards turned back all branded people. "If ever he is found within Jellicoe again, he will be executed in the main square." "Just for smuggling?" Justin shook his head slowly. "The inn is just ahead." "But why?" "For disobeying the Viscount." Except for beer and wine, drugs are forbidden. So is the practice of magic without the Viscount's seal of personal approval. So are begging and prostitution, or selling goods without a seller's seal. I looked around the space where, with effort, I could see that the staff, and that no one but me, or any other good magician could see. I shivered. We'll stable Rosefoot and Gerlach first. The inn at Jellicoe's scarcely an original name, but Jellicoe didn't seem a town for originality. What sort of magicians get the Viscount's seal? As little as possible. Healers, mainly of the orderly kind. There are white healers? Chaos healers? How could they? Justin shook his head, and even Rosefoot tossed hers. Healing takes two forms, Laris. One is helping restructure and reorder the body, knitting wounds and bones, using order to create natural splints and heals, or strengthening the body's resistance to infections. All that is order-based. That's basically what we do with the sheep. It's more complicated, but pretty much the same process with people. Some infections can be treated by destroying the minute creatures that create the infection. That's chaos-based and can be very chancy if you don't know how to fine-tune your destruction. Read your book, the theory's all there, and I shouldn't be telling you any of this. Remember, Laris, you don't have the Viscount seal. Whatever happens, try to remember that. Being my apprentice wouldn't help. Reading your book would. I was ready to take my invisible staff and crack the Grey Wizard. Exactly when had I had time to read anything? But what would arguing have done? Justin would have asked how long I had the book, and I would have admitted I had the time. Until recently. Of course, it wasn't until recently that anybody had given me enough knowledge and information for the book to make sense. In the meantime, as Gerlach picked his way across the brick-paved courtyard in front of the inn, his hoofs clicking ever so slightly, I wondered why Rosefoot's steps were virtually silent. Why would some healers be licensed and not others? Money. A licensed healer pays a percentage to the Viscount. Once in the stable, Justin and I were left to brush our mounts. Why was it that in larger towns, the ones with walls, the reputation of the mountain ponies were so fierce that no stable boy seemed willing to handle them? With considerably more practice. Justin was finished long before I was, and suggested that I join him in the inn while I settled Gerlach and left my staff appropriately concealed. Gerlach whinnied. Yes, I know, there's only hay and no oats, but I'll see in a while, after I figure out how to untangle this mess. Does he listen? Asked the black-haired apprentice, ostler from 2 stalls away, where he was grooming the tall chestnut. He listens. He doesn't think of much about what I say. I didn't bother to gauge his reaction, and as I turned to the brush to the shelf, over to the stall and slung my gear over my shoulder. The wind had dropped off, the sun had disappeared, and the courtyard was almost pleasant as I walked the distance to him. No sooner had I walked inside the inn than Justin took my arm and guided me to a table in the public room. Most of the tables, all red oak, if battered, were occupied, and the air was stuffy, the warmth augmented by flames of a large stone fireplace. The dark-paneled walls and low ceiling added to the oppressiveness. A gold wine, Justin told the girl. Redberry, I added. What do you have to eat? Mutton pie, mutton chops, mixed stew. Try the stew, suggested the Grey Wizard. I didn't need encouragement, not after the days of Montgren. Mutton was fine, but not every day, and not when everything smelled like it. Recluce is trying something. said Justin flatly. What? I sipped the red berry, which helped to ease the slight hoarseness left over from breathing too much sheep. I don't know, but you're part of it. I just looked at the Grey Wizard. Oh, not consciously. I suspect you've been used. That paw's an extraordinary, talented group of danger gelders that the Black Masters dropped on Kandar. Talented enough to confuse any actions the Masters might otherwise have in a bind. I took another sip and waited. You alone radiate order wherever you travel. Yet it's hard to pin it to one person. That black-haired blade. She has everyone talking. Almost enough to make them forget the assassin who preceded her. And the preacher. What about the others? Justin shrugged. You heard about the blonde with the olives, and you could probably tell me more about the others. I decided against it. If Tamara, Merton, and Dorothy hadn't been brought to the attention of the powers there was no reason for me to be the one to do it. Why don't you think it was deliberate? I asked instead. I don't know, but you're really too young to be here. That bothers me. Justin looked into his glass and said nothing more, even after the 2 bowls of stew arrived. In the end, I went upstairs early, discovering that my legs were still not quite used to riding. The single candle in the tiny room Justin had procured, but 2 narrow beds, not much more than pallets, seemed adequate enough for some reading. And I pulled the black-covered book from my back. The introduction was as boring as I remembered. I saw that, leafing through the pages. The last half of the book actually dealt with specific topics, aligning metals, whatever that meant, detecting material stresses, weather dynamics, and cautions, healing processes, order and heat-based machinery, order and energy generation. At that point, I wasn't quite sure whether to start all over at the beginning, or to kick myself. For nearly half a year, had been carrying at least some of the answers to my own questions in my pack. Of course, that assumed that was written down made some sort of sense, and that you could actually apply it. But I neither kicked myself nor started at the beginning. Instead, I started on the section on healing, since I wasn't ready for more boredom. Not only did words make sense, but so did the ideas. And I began to understand what we had done with the Countess's sheep, and why it had worked, and what Justin had alluded to in his remarks about the importance of body's internal order. So you finally decided to see if the book made sense. I almost jumped off the pallet when the Grey Wizard opened the door, realizing how late it must be by the fact that the candle was near to guttering out, and how I must have been poring over the words on healing by the stiffness of my neck. You're that far? I shook my head. Reading about healing, I confessed. You couldn't take the introduction, I gather? No, I've tried 3 separate times, and after half a year it's still boring. Justin yawned and began to take off his tunic. Go back to it when you can. I didn't, and I'm still paying. He turned his back to me and pulled off his boots. It's time to get some sleep. I closed the book and began to pull off my own boots. After long days of writing, I had concentration on the book and the comfortable bed. I thought I would drop off to sleep. Lying there exhausted, I shouldn't have been any trouble at all. Except things tangled in the back of my mind, like why Justin's explanation for his work didn't exactly answer all questions. Then there were Tamara and Crystal. I'd heard about Crystal, yet Tamara should have been more visible. Somehow I should have heard something, somehow, from her or about her. Couldn't believe that she had just disappeared. But news didn't exactly speed from one duchy of Kandar to another. Somewhere I finally fell asleep, looking into the darkness, until, shivered with a deep chill, I tried to turn over, except I could not move. White! A white frog curled up around me, so tightly that I could never see nor move. I could not speak, trapped somewhere in nothingness, bright enough to burn my thoughts. You promised. The words echoed without sound through my head, but I could not respond, could not see, twisting as I did within my skull, yet the person feeling the whiteness was not me, for all the familiarity of the feeling. Was I dreaming, or had Justin again enslaved me in that white prison? I couldn't even see my arms, or move, or even feel whether my muscles would move. Yet I wasn't in my bed, that I knew. You promised to show me the way in. The white fog, that mind-blinding light, or shafts of yellow, red, blue, violet, all spearing around me, slashing at one thought then another. Then a door closed and the whiteness was gone. Sweat poured off my forehead as I sat up in the clean darkness. You promised, the unspoken words echoed in my thoughts. An edge to them was familiar, but I never said anything about promises. I hadn't thought about promise. Then I knew why the words were familiar, and my stomach turned. I only hoped that it had been a dream, and that Tamara was not trapped in that same kind of whiteness that Justin had shown me. But I wasn't sure. Not at all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!